Welcome to the Enlightened Misfits podcast, a space for spiritual entrepreneurs who refuse to settle for anything less than their purpose. I am your host, Lauren Perlingi. After surviving a near-death experience and being declared gone for 3 minutes, I woke up with a mission to help women turn self-sabotage into self-compassion and fear into fuel. Here, we're going to dive into raw conversations, practical tools, and inspiring stories designed to help you break free from old patterns, claim your voice, and build a business that lights up your soul. If you've ever felt like you don't fit the mold, you're in the right place. This is where Misfits rise into their power. Welcome back to the Enlightened Misfits podcast. I am your host, Lauren, and this space is for real conversations, healing, purpose, resilience, and what truly matters to rewrite your own story. So from not that hustle, not the pressure, but from choice, intention, and self-leadership. So today's guest is a living proof of these circumstances that I literally just described. So it's not defined by destiny. Welcome, Mark. You are a very powerful example of what's possible when you refuse to accept the status quo and instead of choosing to rewrite your story. You would rather than tell the story, and I could read your entire description, but I truly love when the guest speaks from their heart and their story and who they truly are. So welcome, Mark. So happy to have you here with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's exciting to be here.
Yes. So kind of tell us a little bit about, if you want to start from the beginning, you can say Cliff Notes versions, whatever you want. But when you first received your kidney diagnosis in 2018, what was that internal conversation that you were having in that moment with yourself? And what made you decide where you were going to rewrite the narrative rather than accept this prognosis?
Right. So it goes way, way back. No. So it kind of does, actually. So the year I was born, my grandmother, she had already been diagnosed with kidney disease, and she was put on dialysis the year, oddly enough, the year I was born. And
Wow.
I was born into, teenage parents. And so I would frequently spend a lot of time over at her house and stay with her quite a bit. And she would actually take me with her to her dialysis appointments. And I wouldn't say it was traumatic, but it was definitely jaunting to experience that and to see your grandmother hooked up to a machine and her blood flowing through the machine, because everything's out in the open. I mean, you see the whole thing. And of course, 4 or 5 year old, you're very curious. So I was a very curious child, and I had to ask all kinds of questions. But the one thing I kind of noticed is the people that were on dialysis, including her, did not look healthy. And that was a really strange thing, I guess, for a 4 or 5 year old to intuitively pick up on. Because their skin coloring wasn't good. They I don't know if you believe in energy or not, but their energy just exuded sadness, right? It just was like, I'm drudging through life, right? And hemodialysis is a very, very taxing thing on your system, right? You're basically draining all the blood out of your body and putting it back in multiple times over a 4 or 5 hour time period, 3 times a week, sometimes more, depending on, right? And people just, they're not healthy. They're the definition of not healthy. And she passed away when I was 12. And that was a really jaunting experience as well. And so when I was diagnosed, all those feelings, all those emotions, everything came flooding back. And the sides part to that story is 2 of my uncles, her sons, died before the age of 40 because of the same kidney disease. And my mom had the same kidney disease, and she went on dialysis at 47. And so, and I was, 45, or no, I wasn't 45 at the time. In 2018, I was 41. So it was like, oh boy, here we go. I'm reliving the same narrative as the family. The generational curse is here. And so all those emotions, all those feelings just came flooding at me. And I basically took the diagnosis as a death sentence. And I thought about it. And I'm like, I've got two young boys that are about to become teenagers. Do I want them living without a dad? Do I want them to experience the experiences I had of seeing their dad on a dialysis machine? And I said, absolutely not. Like that, I don't want to live that life. That my career is over. Like total doomsday scenario.
Right.
And it was in that moment that I said, I have a choice here. I can either continue that cycle or be proactive and do something different. And I obviously chose the latter because here I am, not on dialysis.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
That's and how I was gonna say, and tell if you don't mind sharing. So you
Yeah.
said 2018, you were 41 when you got the diagnosis?
Right. And
Okay.
so, yeah, I got the diagnosis. And at that time, I had 24% kidney function,
Okay.
which is, I, I mean, I don't want to state the obvious, but it's not good, right?
Yeah. For
um,
people that are not medically, I have a medical background, so I know what that means. I know what means.
yeah,
I know what all of that is. But for people that don't know what that means,
right. I had stage
it's
four
bad.
renal. I had stage four renal failure,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I think people can relate to cancer terms a little bit more. So,
Yeah.
stage four means like you're getting ready to go on hospice and you're writing your will, kind of thing, right?
Right. Yes.
And yeah, it was pretty traumatic. And so, I had my first meeting with my nephrologist, kidney doctor.
Thank you.
Let's make it easy.
Yeah. That's an easy term. I knew what you meant, but yeah.
Yeah. Um, and I told her my story of my family, and it's because it's a family disease, and I believe it went back even further than my grandmother,
Sure.
and said, I don't want to go on dialysis. I cannot go on dialysis. I'm sure I could, and I've got that kind of overcomer mindset, and so,
Sure.
but there was just something in me that believed I'm not going to go on dialysis. And so let's do everything we can to make that happen. And she's like, okay, you can change your diet, you can do your exercise, you can lose some weight. There's um, a new drug out on the market that hasn't gone through the FDA approval yet. So we might not be able to get it on your insurance, but maybe if we call the company, they would give it to you free as a trial run kind of thing. and the idea was it would remove fluids from the kidneys because I had polycystic kidney disease. So the cysts
Okay.
would grow on your kidneys and the cysts grow and grow and grow and your kidneys expand, expand, expand until they no longer work. And she's like, it doesn't cure you. It doesn't like reverse things, but it helps the cyst not grow as fast. And so I said, I will try anything. And she's like, well, it could cause liver failure. It could, like the
Right.
standard list of things, like you'll start
Right.
bleeding from your eyes and you'll start speaking different language, like, all
Right.
those terms
Yeah.
and conditions
All
that
of
you see
those. Yeah.
on those
All of those
prescriptions.
nonsense. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, I'll take the risk. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Um, and that bought me time. And in 2022, like the beginning of 2022, she said, okay, Mark, we've got to get serious and start talking about dialysis. You're at 17, 18% kidney function. Um, it's time to go on dialysis. And you're going to go get a workup because after you get under 20%, that's when you can actually get on a transplant list. And which to me is crazy that,
Wow. I didn't
you
know
know,
that.
you have to be super sick and like on the verge before they put you on the transplant list. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me. I would think that, and I don't want to make this into a medical healthcare conversation per se, but like, wouldn't you want to be preemptive and
Yeah.
help people ahead of them having catastrophe? But anyway,
Yeah.
I'll get off that
I mean,
story.
I was going to say, we're all about talking about the things that don't, like, that are not talked about a lot. And I think that especially when you say about healthcare, in my mind, and I think that we think obviously the same of, so you're going to give somebody a transplant that is unhealthy, which could potentially reject. I just did high risk OB, and I say I just did, but I had to go through anatomy. I did ultrasounds. I did
Yeah,
general ultrasound, so I'm very familiar with. My next question was if you just described it, but I was going to say, well, what type of, renal failure? Because like polycystic, like there's always a reason of like this happened to this, like all that stuff. So in
right.
my mind, I'm like, oh, so he gets probably ultrasounds and he gets kidney checks and all of that stuff. But no, going back to what you said, I'm right. And I think the listeners too, the reason why they listen to this podcast a lot of the times is what they tell me is because we always have conversations that are not talked about or that need to be talked about more. So, not that we need to talk about healthcare all the time because we know how that goes and like how that
Right.
is and how that structure is. And it's just to keep people sick and, all the things, but it also
I
helps. We both
yeah,
a balance. So,
yeah.
kind of continue on about what,
Yeah, I was just going to say preventative maintenance or, preventative maintenance or healthcare or medicine is so much better than reactive
right.
maintenance or
Yeah.
and I think we have it backwards. I think the system is set up to be backwards. And maybe that's because big pharma makes profit off of it or whatever. But
Yeah.
I'm only thankful for big pharma because they make my anti-rejection meds. But beyond that, I think they're just trying to scam society. But anyway.
Yeah. No, I literally had just said this to, when did I say this? Yesterday? The day before, something like that. I said, when you have an industry that makes profit, why would they do anything different? And it's,
Right.
and it's unfortunately the people they can control are humans. And we live on this planet. I mean, there's other things living obviously on this planet, which,
Yeah.
when you go back to do you believe in energy? My question to everybody listening and you is like, I don't understand people that don't believe in energy because they believe in Wi-Fi. You believe
Yeah.
in something unseen. You believe that your computer is supposed to work and your phone is supposed to work, but you're telling me that energy doesn't work. Like what? Like, huh? I mean, sure,
Yeah.
I'm not a scientist. Do I know a lot about science? Sure, but it's like I don't know why this works, energy healing works, why this works, why this works. I'm sure I can figure it out and tell you if you need that explanation, but Google also probably knows. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Just ask Siri.
Yeah. Or
Right.
ask whatever chat, GPT or whatever you have. I'm telling you, they're going to give you a much better definition than I'm going to ever give you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of along the lines of preventative
Yeah.
is I talked to her and I said, okay, I'll go through the workup and everything for the transplant because at that point I was getting on the list. Um, give me 6 months. I will find a donor. And the thing with California is the donor list, because there's so many people that need a kidney, is
Mhm.
8 to 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't have eight. I had 8 to 12 weeks,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I put a plea out on Facebook. I had to take a big old bite of humble pie and be vulnerable, which, for men, we're not allowed to be vulnerable. We're not allowed to be, exposed. We have to be tough and rugged and everything like that. And so I just was like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care about my ego. I don't care about any of that stuff because what I care about is being alive and being able to live life, not just survive it.
Yes.
And so I put a plea out on Facebook and it went like super micro viral. Like people started
Amazing.
spreading it.
Yeah.
And the hospital that did my transplant called me in it was almost exactly a month after I made that post. And they said, you have 3 matches already.
Wow.
And I said, oh, yeah, here we go. Right.
Here we go. This is what I'm talking. Yeah.
And so they did the workup on the matches. And one of them was like a really, really good match, but they had some concerns about their glucose levels and so that ended up causing a delay. But what it did is when I said 6 months, my doctor was like, well, if you have a match, I'm not going to put you on dialysis because once you go on dialysis, it just makes everything harder. So if you can if you can bear through having minimal kidney function and just survive until the transplant, that was the plan. And so that's what we did. And in 2023, November 2023, I got my transplant. And
Yay.
um, it was crazy because I had all that nervous energy going into it. And it was just, and I kind of wrote a book about the whole process. And in the book, I talk about um, pregame jitters because I used to play sports growing up. And when we feel anxious or when we feel nervous before something, it's the same energy and the same brain activity as when you're excited about something. It's
Mhm.
it's a conscious choice of whether you're going to review it as a negative anxiety or positive excitement. And so I I had to kind of tap into that old hockey player spirit of this is just pregame jitters, man. You put it out there in the universe that everything's going to work out. You're going to do fine. You're going to be great. And when I woke up, I swear on, I cannot describe. I've I've tried to explain it over and over again, and I've yet to find the words. I woke up different, and I can't explain what I mean by that, other than I was transformed in that 10-hour surgery. Something happened where I woke up and I was different. And, maybe people will say, oh, that's because all those toxins that had built up in your body are gone now and your brain is functioning as normal now. But that might be an explanation. But I woke up feeling different in my soul and in my heart.
Right.
And so I had 3 months to think about that because it was such a crazy experience to wake up and feel that way. And so over those 3 months of sitting at home alone and thinking, because, wife goes back to work, kids go back to school, I'm home alone watching Netflix. And I think I finished all of the entire catalog of Netflix in like 6 days.
Right.
I was
Right.
bored out of my mind, and
Yeah.
I got transcendental and had all these kinds of existential crises and stuff. And what I discovered is I had lost my purpose in life. I had become dad. I had become worker at company and husband, and I lost who I was. And maybe to be completely honest, I never knew who I really was anyway because I had always been living life for other people. When you're a kid, you're living life to please your parents, and then you please your college professors, and then you please your spouse once, right? You're always doing stuff for other people, and I kind of lost who I was as a person, and I got to figure that out during the recovery. And I I thought about how what at work makes me happy, what brings me joy. And I get excited about, growing the business and things like that, but what really hits home is when I have conversations with people that help them grow and help them understand how to grow their career or how to navigate something in their life. And I thought, that's my purpose. My purpose is to not work a 9 to 5 job at some corporate gig making money for stockholders, right? It's
Right.
I believe my new purpose is to inspire others and help them know that they can rewrite their story, that they are stronger than they believe they are. And it's a choice to rewrite their story. And in fact, I kind of liken it to you're living the same chapter in your book over and over and over again,
Right.
not knowing that you can write a new chapter, right?
Right. Yeah.
Or or how to even start writing your new chapter. And I think that's really the message is how can I help people understand that you can make that choice, you can flip that switch. And I think this is great timing because here we are, 8 days after New Year's, and I think statistically speaking, tomorrow is the day where most people quit their resolutions.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, how do you go beyond January 9th on your resolutions? How do you build momentum and um, create those habits that now your new identity are your new habits, not your old ones, right? And you get to live the best version of yourself. Like that's what excites me when I wake up in the morning. And so, I wrote a book about the transplant. Oh, yeah, I ran a marathon. Um,
So yeah, I was gonna say, tell us about your book and then the marathon, because I think
yeah,
that's two huge, like, what I'm thinking and envisioning people listening to your story is what the limiting beliefs that the lies, pretty much the lies that they tell, I mean, I'm going to include myself. We all tell ourselves, right? About,
everyone.
oh,
Yeah,
I can't do that because this, or like the comparison. And it's like coming back to energy and like spirituality and like whatever you believe in, that if we're all the same, like me and you are the same. Yes, we look different, like, but we're all the same. We just live different, we have different paths. But like at the end of the day, we talk a lot about, we're not separate. And it's like the separation actually is what divides us. And I always like remind people. So like I can look at somebody like Gary Vee. Let's just say Gary Vee. I love him. Love
right.
him. And I'm
Yeah,
like, he is an idol of mine. I'm like, I want to be just like him, but better. And if I would have told him that, like if I one day, I'm saying one day I want to have him on my podcast, but maybe it's like when it's in person or something that
yeah,
want to have just like 10 seconds. I just 10-second video. We can talk for an hour if he wants, whatever. But like, I know for a fact what he would say is, I want
be
you better
you.
than me. Be you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Or like, I want you better than me. Like, that's why he does what he does. And I feel like to my core, that's exactly why I even started this podcast 2 years ago, because it's like, how can I help bring people's voices to, the forefront of wherever they're listening? And I think that that is kind of like where we're shifting to. So,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess while I was in my figuring things out phase,
Mhm.
I did some reflection and I had to go twice a week. Like for the first month, I had to go twice a week back to the hospital, get blood work done. I hate needles and getting poked twice a week. I mean, luckily by then I had been poked quite enough that I had enough exposure therapy to
Right.
kind of just deal with it. But every time I walked into that waiting room, I saw the same people I saw when I was 4 and 5 years old. And and in fact,
Mm.
the first time I went to the hospital to start the workup process for the transplant, the nurse literally looked out into the hallway and said, "Where's the patient?" Because she thought I was escorting the patient into the the office because
Wow.
I did not look like the typical stage 4 renal failure person because I wouldn't say I've done the best at maintaining my health and fitness, but I've done a decent job over the years, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
when I walked in, she was like, "Where is the patient?" And I said, "I'm the patient." And she was like, her face just kind of was like, "What?" And that threw me off because I I'm like, does not like everyone doesn't look like this? And then it dawned on me that no, not everyone looks healthy when they have stage 4 renal failure. And she said, "Oh, and the other funny thing was before that, I had a call from the hospital because they were doing a stress test. They wanted to stress my heart and see if I was even capable of having a transplant. And the lady on the phone said, "Are you ambulatory?" And I was like, "I think I was in an ambulance once, but I don't." Right. Like I'd never heard, like in
Right.
40 something years, I'd never heard that word. I was like, what are you talking? I know what an ambulance is, but I don't, right. She's
Right.
like, no, can you move? And I'm like, well,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, well, I just hiked Mount Baldy like 2 days ago, if that counts. And she goes, yeah, I think that counts. So I knew there was something there. And as I was trying to figure out how can I inspire, how can I use my body and my mind to inspire others? And I thought, let's do something absolutely unexpected, way out there that no one would like the limiting factors that people have of no, you
Hmm.
can't do that.
Hmm.
And so I decided that I would run a marathon on my 1 year anniversary of my transplant.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
I am not a runner. I have never run in my life. I mean, I've run a little bit, but like it had been 10 years before I even started training before the marathon, and here I am trying to heal from having my body ripped open and kidneys removed and new kidneys put in and like and so yeah, I started training for a marathon, and 346 days after my transplant, I ran my first ever marathon. And believe me, when I walked across, or not walked, when I jogged across that finish line, everything, like the weight of the world, just was like lifted off of me, and the
Wow.
overwhelming feeling of emotion of I did what I said I was going to do,
Hmm.
and this is why I ran this is so that I can share this story and tell people you can do whatever you put your mind to. I just had a transplant less than a year ago, and here I am crossing the finish line of a 26.2 mile run,
Right.
right? Like
Yeah.
anything is possible if you just have the right mindset and attitude about it. And um, I was telling people this, and they're like, "That is absolutely amazing. That's inspiring. You should write a book." And so I wrote a book. It was just
Yeah.
like it was another one of those things like, oh, I can't write a book, and it's like, well, why can't I not? Right? And
Right.
so it was just like challenge accepted. I will write a book, and I did, and I self-published it. And I put it on Amazon, and then someone said, "Well, what about this?" And I was like, "Okay, let's do that." Let
Right.
right, and so that's how I live life now. Is let's go find all those hard things that I would have never done before, that I would have taken for granted. Just getting by in life. And I think that's what happens is people just start to take life for granted and
Yes.
not realize that there's so much life to live. There's so much excitement out there. So, yeah, that's just how I've been trying to live my life for the last 2 years and 2 months.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm happy that you're here. I just want to say that. And I know all the listeners listening are happy that you're here, and sharing your story is really, really powerful. Like when I'm listening to you, the thing that comes up for me is like how much our bodies, our minds are capable of resilience. And I don't want to call myself a runner, but I have had a very similar experience that I never ran a marathon, but I ran 3K, like 3 miles or no,
that's a 5K.
5Ks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I saying three? Okay. So yeah, 3 miles, but 5K. And then I was training for, I think a half marathon, and then I broke both ankles and tore both ligaments in my foot. So like that was like,
That'll slow you down a little bit.
yeah, so but getting back, like I love running on like I like in the treadmill, and like now physically I promise myself, and listening to you, I'm thinking I promise myself in 2026 and moving forward that I'm going to show up for my physical body more, because I don't really know what happened in 2025, but I'm starting to notice like I don't even remember the lessons, and there's been so much chaos, and I'm like, what happened? Like 2025 was literally like what, 8 days ago? And I'm like,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
year, it's like, or maybe it's just like we're not going to think about last 2025. Like my lessons, I'm taking them with me and moving forward, but it's like I'm just moving forward, and I think that that is huge, because for me, like when I'm listening to you talk, it is only mindset. Like me going to the gym. Like, do I want to go to the gym every single day or 3 times a week? But then I have this little voice that says, but you promised yourself. So then I'm not showing up for myself. And then
Right.
being a leader in this space, just like you are a leader in your space, then it's like it starts to be like, I can't speak this because I'm not doing it. And it's like for me, I don't know if you
Yeah.
have the same morals. I don't speak anything that I don't do or haven't done. So
Right.
make sure I do it first.
Yeah.
I have an experience of like, this sucks, or, whatever. Like, you have kids, so you understand, like, my daughter's 6 right now. She's not sleeping through the night again. And I'm up 2, 3 hours in the middle of the night, have a full packed day, but I still get my ass to the gym. like
Yeah.
because I promised myself. And I think that is the biggest when I'm listening to you, like relating it to, my experience, that is the biggest thing that I'm like, my mind is like, shit, she's not listening. Like my ego is like, shit, she ain't listening to us anymore. What the hell? Like,
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny. I'm actually working on my my next book because why not?
Mhm.
Um, I'm writing a chapter about discipline right now. I'm like literally
Oh, I
in the
love that.
throes of writing the chapter on discipline, and there's so much. Um, our brains are designed to protect us, like that
Right.
lizard brain, that the amygdala, and all, it's designed to protect us, and so it it naturally seeks out comfort.
Right.
And the warm bed, especially in the wintertime,
Yeah.
is much better than going to the gym in your
Right.
little dumb lizard brain, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
keeping you safe.
Yeah.
But that discipline that you build and those habits that you build, and when you do them enough, it becomes it rewires your brain. It literally rewires your brain. And in my research for this chapter, um, it said that physical action will rewire your brain like 400% faster than thinking about it. So get up and move. That's like the whole thing. And
Yeah.
and so, those days that I'm like, I just did this and I just did that, and I'm so tired and I don't want to get up and I don't want to do it. And then I'm like, you just literally wrote a book on this, and you're currently writing another book related to this, and you have an Instagram page where you spout this all the time. You have no choice anymore. You're getting up and you're doing this, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't want to be on stage and get called a fraud for because you're not living the life that you're telling everyone else to live, right?
Right.
So it's like, yeah, absolutely. I get up and I do it, and I angrily just say words under my breath before I start. But the funny thing is once you get started,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, what was I complaining about? And then when you're
Right.
done, those endorphins kick in and that dopamine hit comes in, and you're just like, what? Like that
Yeah.
excitement comes in. And it's like, why would I ever not get up and go to the gym?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Or
such a
like,
crazy thing.
yeah, or like walking, or like, obvious, it's so much easier to just get on our phones and like doom scroll or like whatever it is instead of, or distractions and all that stuff. And I like that you were talking a little bit about discipline, and I'm excited for your new book. I'll make sure his book will be below. And if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening to this, you can check his book out. The link is below for that too. So, kind of speaking a little bit more about discipline, can you kind of share a little bit about like the change in your own discipline that has helped kind of shape like why you feel like this book is going to be as powerful as your first one?
um, Yeah, so my first book was more about my journey and anecdotal stories from my life of how I was able to build resilience, how I
Hmm.
was able to build grit, and lessons I learned from playing hockey and leadership, because I'm a director at a major aerospace company. And
Oh,
so
okay. Yeah.
I manage like I think it's like $250 million portfolio or something like this. I should know the numbers, but anyway, like I have a very
Yeah.
large team that works for me, and
Yeah.
so I know quite a bit about leadership, and I would even say I might be an expert in the field. But
You
um,
are 100%.
I'm sometimes too humble. So it's the first book. It's the Overcomer's Journey, and it was really more about the transplant to marathon. And as I wrote it, I realized that I was coming up with these little principles that helped me get to that finish line. And um, after I finished that and I submitted it, and it was out there, I realized I could go into such more, deeper detail on those things. And that's what the next book is really about, is like, how do we, and it's really going to be a three-part series. And the first book is about physical transformation and how we can use physical transformation to build momentum. And, I'm a nerd. I have an engineering degree for my undergrad, and then I have a master's in business management. But um, it the idea is that start with physical transformation and using that Newton's first law of an object at rest will stay at rest and an object in motion will stay in motion, and I kind of liken that to our lives. When we're feeling stuck, we are not in motion, and we need something to break that inertia. So maybe watch the movie Rocky and get inspired and break the inertia, but that motivation isn't going to sustain, because motivation is emotion based. Motivation is when you feel like pumped up because you saw Rocky, or pumped up because you listened to Linkin Park, or whatever song you listen to that gets you pumped up. And uh, what allows you to build that momentum, so that when something does come up against you, when that obstacle or roadblock or setback happens, that you could just blow right through it, is that momentum that you build. And you can only build that through discipline. When you have discipline, when you get up and do the things that you don't want to do, or when your emotions are telling you not to do it but you do it anyway, you you build resilience in your mind. And there's, I don't want to get too crazy with the science, but and Andrew Huberman does a much better job on this, but he talks about this anterior mid-singular cortex or something to that effect, that is as this knob in your brain that actually grows when you do things you don't want to do. And that's kind of what scientists are calling the willpower, part of your brain. And when you do the hard things, that grows. And the more you grow that, the more you can actually do things that you don't want to do. And that's building on that discipline. And when you do things daily, those things become habits, and those habits become who you are. And you become that wiring in your brain is now, oh, it's 5 a.m. I'm supposed to be getting up right now. And so you wake up, whether you want to or not, right? And
Right.
then your brain says, well, we're awake now. It's 5 a.m. It's dark outside, but I know I should be on a treadmill, or I know I should be running laps around the block, or I know I should be doing 50 push-ups before I go to work. And you get up and you do that. Write in your journal, talk about gratitude. And the thing is like that discipline starts to flow out into the rest of your life, because now I'm working out, I'm getting stronger. I'm not going to eat the donut, I'm going to eat the egg white bagel or whatever, right? Like you're going to
Right.
make smarter
Yeah.
choices with your food, because your body is
Yeah.
now craving the better food for you. So now you're building discipline in your diet, and now you're building discipline in your other habits. So like when your friends say, let's go have 20 margaritas after work, you're like, you know what? I'm going to pass on that, because I have to get up tomorrow and I have a 10-mile run, right?
Right.
You're building the habits that align with your purpose, with your goals, and things like that in life. So I probably rambled on too,
No,
but
I love that you were talking about the habits and like how that the science behind it, because we all love science here. I know I do, and I know the listeners do too. So it's like you can't, we're sometimes woo-woo a little bit on the podcast, but that is energy. We'll just call that energy mixed with science, and it just makes sense, like, or it just works kind of thing. So it's like, you know, law,
so
like it's law. It's,
yeah,
like when you drop something, are you telling me that if I drop something right now, the law of gravity is not real? It is, because the pen is going to fall on my desk, like
right.
that's law. That is the laws of the universe, of gravity or of energy, like those type of
Yeah,
things. And it's like, understanding that just from that foundational level, you're like, so now explain this, now explain that. It
yeah,
makes sense. And, for our minds, when, we're, when things are in a world of like, is the internet real? Like, do you know like anything real?
Yeah.
Like you have to really use discernment at that point, you know? So
Yeah.
thank you for explaining that because I think that, maybe listeners that feel, stuck in survival mode or they feel overwhelmed or, they keep telling themselves this, I can't do this, I have this. Like the biggest thing for me too is I've had a lot of people lately, client based, telling me I feel so overwhelmed. And here's me. And I'm like, I understand the feeling of overwhelmed, but
Yeah.
very gently, I'm like, tell me why you feel overwhelmed. Because all of your
Right.
to-do list has to be done like in a minute. It's like, no, back
Yeah.
up, like let's figure out emotionally. And I noticed for myself that emotionally, I would always, for the last 5 years in my business, I would always show up for the podcast. I would always show up for things because like the podcast brings me joy. I would show up there for things that brought me joy. Does the gym always bring me joy? No. But I
But it does
understand.
because you feel better, and that's what brings you the
Yes.
joy.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was going to say after like today, this morning, after dropping my daughter off at school, I was like, I really could just go home and just like do nothing. But then I'm like, let me drive to the gym. And then like walking out of the gym, I'm like, so proud of myself. And I'm like, like it's just, again, I have to create that habit again because it was like faithfully, I would go 5 days a week, sometimes on the weekends. Like, it was like there was non-negotiable. It was in my schedule. And then it somehow just kind of escaped my schedule, or I was showing up for other people, or, like that type of thing. And that's, again, going back to overwhelm. When I ask those questions, they're doing nothing for their self. And I feel like that's, me included, I started to look at my day. I'm like, what am I doing for myself? It was nothing. If I could do an hour of working out for myself, and then, obviously an entrepreneur, you got to,
Yeah.
there's different things you have to do. However,
Yeah.
the excuse was I didn't have time. And I was like, that's such a lie. I do have time. I run my own business. Like,
Yeah.
why am I lying and saying that I don't have time? So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, that's an excuse. Let me check myself. I think that that is just from what you said this entire conversation. I think, and then the process that I'm very vulnerable and I'm very honest and real about, my experience. I've heard a couple of times that people are like, Lauren, you do all the things and you make it look so easy. And I'm like, do I need to get on a podcast and tell you every single day about what? No, who cares about that? That shit is irrelevant, but
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
tell you that I am human. I have human emotions and I go through human things.
Yeah.
You know?
No,
Yeah.
the I don't have time is the biggest lie we tell ourselves. But you used a
So true.
word that stuck out to me because
Mhm.
you used the word non-negotiable. And I love that word because if you were to go poll 100 people, how many people in that group of 100 would say that they have standards for themselves and that they have non-negotiables? I bet you the number's super, super low.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem is when you don't have standards for yourself, and that's kind of aligned with the discipline, that's kind of aligned with, do you even have goals written down? Right. So if you have the goal of, I want to lose 20 pounds in 2026. Okay, cool. Write that goal down. Writing your goal down, there's all these kind of psychological benefits from just physically writing it down. I saw a thing one time. This guy, he wrote 10 things down on a piece of paper, crumpled it up, and threw it away. And in 2 years, he had accomplished all 10 of those things. And it wasn't that like he had it stuck on the wall and he was checking them off the list. Those things just ended up happening because
Right.
he had put it out in the universe, and the universe opened the doors for him. And I've learned to believe that when you set your intentions by writing your goals down, by putting them out in the universe will start opening doors for you. And if you don't walk through them, the universe will stop opening doors for you. But once you walk through the first one, the universe is going to say, listen, he walked through this door, I'm going to open two more for him, and I'm going to open two more after that, and 10 more, and I'm just going to keep opening doors because he's listening or she's listening to what I'm giving. since my transplant, I'll keep putting things out there,
Mhm.
and the blessings and the things that the doors that have been opening for me are even beyond what I thought. And it's
Yeah.
because I'm walking through those doors and saying, I'm gonna say yes. I'm going to go for it. Like I one day just was like, I should get on podcasts. And I went on Facebook and I said, find a guest, be a guest. And the next thing you know, I was booked for like 4 months on podcasts. And I'm like, how did that even happen? Like, I was just curious. Like, had no idea that it would like explode like that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like kind of going back to the non-negotiable, when you have that goal and when you set that intention, you should also write down what are the actions and behaviors that will allow you to be successful in reaching that goal. And those become your standards and non-negotiables, right? If if you're a donut addict, like if you go to Krispy Kreme every day and you get a six-pack of donuts, which hot fresh Krispy Kremes are kryptonite.
Yeah.
Just don't
Right.
drive
They're
by the
good.
store, right?
Yeah.
But but if that's your standard of I'm not going to eat Krispy Kreme because that does not align with my goal, that's a non-negotiable. So when someone puts that Krispy Kreme in front of you, sorry, not eating it, non-negotiable.
Right.
Go. You want to go to the party or are you going to go to the gym? I'm going to the gym because that's a non-negotiable. I'm going to maybe I'll go to the party after I go to the gym, but I'm hitting the gym first because I made that standard for myself that I'm going to go to the gym 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week, whatever it is, right?
Right.
So I think a lot of people have forgotten that. And then they look at people that haven't drive and ambition and non-negotiables and standards and oh, I don't drink. Oh, why don't you drink? They look down on you in this weird way of like this reverse bullying of of like, oh, shame on you for living a happy, good, successful and healthy life, right?
Yeah.
It's more of a reflection of who they are than of who you are. And I kind of take pride in that when people say that. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Especially going back to like the drinking, because nobody asks the other person. Maybe I don't hear it. Maybe I don't see it. I don't know. I think I do. I know the psychological, but understanding behind it. If it's like, why are you drinking? Why
Yeah,
would you ask something like to me, talking back to like curious, I've always been a curious person, curious child. I feel like I came out of my mom and I was curious of like why I chose, oh God, this earth. Like what made me choose this? It's like obviously, going through my experience, I understand that, what we think about and what we say is what our reality is. So, like, I simply tell people, I think I say this like once a day, if you want different, be different. Like, and I'm not saying change your entire life, right? Like, that's not what I'm saying. When I was on a podcast, recording a couple weeks ago, the podcast guest, he really stood out to me when he said the universe has a very short vocabulary. And I've always believed this. Maybe I wasn't consciously aware of it, but it's so be it. That is what the universe shows you. So it's like if you show the universe that you want that, you're thinking that, you're saying that. And I'm not talking about the bullshit affirmations that we think that we can tell our minds. That's not what I'm talking about. You can't convince your body to do anything it doesn't want to do, right? Like you
right.
have to build a muscle. And it's like, that's why affirmations, they're great when your body is in agreement of it, but you can't just look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I'm gonna do, like I'm beautiful, or if you're struggling with body image or shame or whatever, like lower end vibrational emotions, like you can't just convince your mind to believe it because your mind is gonna be like you or money. That's another big thing right now. It's like, or I'm a rich bitch or I'm rich or whatever. It's like your mind is like you're broke. Like that's
Yeah,
what you tell yourself, so that all is like, the universe shows that. So anyway, that's part of a little bit about my journey. But I notice when I'm hearing people talk, that's actually what they're saying. Like, this is my circumstance, right? Like, we all have
right.
a story, and this is what I wanted different. I mean, sure, I tried to do things I failed a lot. I still fail. I mean, it's like where I learn lessons or like I like to learn and it's like I need to, ask for help. All of that. That's been a struggle for mine of like asking for help. That's
Yeah.
all my own, bullshit. We all have it, right? But it
Right.
comes back to I want different. Just like you said in the beginning of this
Yeah.
conversation. You were not accepting, and I'm very clear with the universe. I'm not having, like I said earlier, 2025 is never happening again. I don't care what cycle pattern, what goes on in astrology, what happens in whatever, what just this is nine.
Right.
That
Yeah.
shit is not happening. And it's like that's my standard. And
Right.
the universe is like, so be it. Okay. So then
Yeah.
like here we go, we're moving forward. Like that type
Yeah.
of like you said, earlier, it's like that circumstance. So
Yeah.
before we wrap up, what is kind of one if there's a listener listening to this and maybe they're stuck in survival mode or they're overwhelmed by their circumstance, like what is a like one choice or mindset shift that you believe that would create like real momentum towards their transformation?
Right. I think we were dancing around it just in the last 4 minutes or 5 minutes. You are not your circumstance, and I think I think I mentioned it in my book, my current book that's out. Of you are not your diagnosis. Like I am not a kidney. I yes, I had a kidney transplant. I am not my disease. I
Yes.
have a choice to be Mark. And I made the choice to be Mark, and I'm just happen to have the kidney disease. If you're poor, you are not your circumstance. If you can make choices to change your circumstance. So find out what it is you want. What is it that you don't like about your life? And then say, you know what? I am not that. I'm going to fix that. And I think I used the phrase earlier. Take a big old bite of humble pie because you're letting your ego get in the way,
Yeah.
right? And I call it the identity trap. And what happens is we we fall into these traps of the bad behaviors, of feeling stuck, of being in this stuck paradigm, and that becomes our identity. We become the, oh, look at me, look at my circumstances. I could never do what you do because my circumstances are different. I was from the same circumstances. I made a choice to come out of that. I've been poor. I've been diagnosed with a chronic illness. I've been through abuse. I've been like I was an alcoholic for many, many years, right? Like I've been through pretty much anything that anybody could ever come up with. And it's
Right.
like I made the choice to not let that bring me down because I am not that. That happened to me. It's not who I am. And I think if we just take a moment to take a step back and say, I'm not my circumstances, I can make a choice to change my environment. And I'm going to take that big old bite of humble pie and I'm going to write down new goals and I'm going to start taking the actions to come after them. It sounds super easy, but right, our egos get in the way. But
Yeah.
it that
100%.
that's really what it is just put the ego aside and say, what is it that you really want? Do you really want to continue to be the victim? Do you want to be the victim of your circumstances? And oh, in third grade, this kid called me ugly. It's 40 years later. What does that kid calling you ugly have to do with your life today? Right? Like,
Right.
who cares? He called you ugly. He's probably a loser now. Move on. Right?
Yeah.
It's I mean,
Yeah.
I hate to be so blunt about it, but it's sometimes when you're stuck, you need the gut punch to get unstuck. You need that thing to make the inertia break, right?
Right. It's just like you said to that, it's like a process one of my mentors has always helped me understand is like we all have stories, right? And maybe we don't know the story kind of overlaps of like what happened and the trauma. Like that's all valid and real. However, you're allowing that it's like the mind, I'm like I don't understand why people tell me sometimes, which obviously they're not, it's just a frequency thing, but they're like, yeah, I don't have trauma. I'm like, you're not human. You're not human. If you're
Yeah.
telling me you have no trauma, like, but it's, they feel like they have no trauma because they feel like what they went through isn't valid. It isn't, all of that. So it's like, it's
Yeah.
just a story. And you put the story on the shelf and figure out what emotion is attached to that. That's it. It's
Right.
like, you know, when you're thinking about different stuff or you have different situations, that story could be controlling what's going on right now. So it
Yeah.
could be like that deeper level. Obviously, that's through a lot of deep trauma and healing work, but like just having that specific thing is really powerful of like, what do you want? Like what's there's a story attached to it. There's always a
Yeah.
story attached to it. And it's like how to stop making that story identify with you or, like vice
Right.
versa. So yeah.
Yeah. I found a show on TV called Forged in Fire, and then that got me onto a YouTube thing where I started watching YouTube videos on people making swords and knives and Damascus blades and these beautiful elaborate swords, and you're like, oh my gosh, that is the most beautiful sword I've ever seen or beautiful knife I've ever seen. And I bring that up because it's a perfect analogy for life and those traumas. They take a raw piece of metal, this ugly, misshapen hunk of metal, and they throw it into a fire. And that fire is not comfortable, right? Like if that, like I'm using that analogy, fire is not good and comfortable for us, right? And then
Yeah.
they take this red hot yellow piece of metal and they beat it repeatedly with a hammer, sometimes like a mechanical hammer, not just an arm in a hammer, like a mechanical. And they shape this thing and they put it through a grinder and they put it through a polisher and they put it through a buffer. And the next thing you know, it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen.
Right.
The things that happen to us in life is that forge, it's that hammer, it's that sandpaper, but it's all shaping us to be something beautiful. So you can either take those situations as this is something bad happening to me and it's ugly and I'm, just, or you can say, oh, this is molding me and this is making me powerful to be the most beautiful blade there is. And I think it's a perception shift where
Yeah. 100%.
it's you could take that trauma and say, yes, I'm going to let this ruin the rest of my life,
Sure.
or
Yeah.
I'm going to build from this. And you know, I like my kidney diagnosis, the kind of pitch that didn't get on like the if you go to Amazon and you look, and I've got some like quotes and things like that from different things. Amazon somehow blocked this because it said it was like offensive, but I don't know how. It said, "What if the thing that nearly broke you is became the foundation to your greatest comeback?"
Wow.
Right?
Powerful. Yeah.
What if the thing that nearly broke you became the foundation for your greatest comeback? And that's my story is I almost died from a kidney disease. I was on the brink of having to go on dialysis, and for people that don't know, once you go on dialysis, it's a downhill slope
Yeah.
and quality of life goes down really fast and you don't live a super long time on dialysis. I mean, 10, 12 years maybe,
Yeah.
um,
Just short compared to,
which is short compared to an 80-year lifespan, right?
yeah.
And so I was knocking on the door. I was filling out the paperwork for the Grim Reaper, and I made I made a choice, and I said,
Yeah.
no, I'm gonna
Not
not now,
today.
not today, man,
Not today,
not
Satan. Not today.
not today.
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn this into a comeback story.
Yeah. And that is just this powerful, thank you, Mark, for sharing all of your wisdom. And this conversation is just a powerful reminder that transformation is not ever, I'm going to say never in perfect conditions. Like it's never. It
Nope.
begins with your choice.
Yep.
And your story shows us that purpose, that fuel of healing, the discipline that you can rebuild trust with yourself and the resilience about never being able to struggle. So Thank you so much for sharing everything, your vulnerability, your humanity, your mindset behind everything. Your journey is really empowering and it really invites other people to listen to themselves, raise their, be able to rewrite their story, which is the power. Like we give our power away constantly. And it is, you have that power to rewrite your entire life. So, thank you so much for everybody that has tuned in. Make sure if you are listening to this over whatever you're listening to this, you check out all of his links below in the show notes. And if you're watching this, make sure you check out the description box. And I also wanted to invite you into my Enlightened Misfits Sisterhood, and the links also will be below in the show notes, where we blend business and healing and spirituality and just a place for accountability and trust and discipline. We all need it. So if you're interested, make sure you check out that link below as well. Mark, again, thank you so much for being here and for the work that you're doing for the world. If today's episode spoke to you and you're ready to rise with support, I'd love to invite you in to the Enlightened Misfits Sisterhood, a sacred community for spiritual entrepreneurs to heal, grow, and lead with purpose. You can join us by using the link below in the show notes or connecting with me over on Facebook or Instagram at The Mermaid Light. If you loved today's episode, subscribe, share, and leave a review. This helps support us reach more women who are ready to rise. Remember, your journey isn't about fitting in. It's about embracing the truth of who you are. Until next time, stay inspired, stay aligned, and keep creating your extraordinary path. This is Lauren, and you've been listening to the Enlightened Misfits podcast.